With August 11th Common Council pre-caucus caucus meeting. We'll start off with ordinance number 4. This is approving the designation of Lewis Hendricks as an eligible and qualified project sponsor pursuant to Article 15 of the General Municipal Law for the purpose of the sale of 717 Blandina Street for $500. Next is an ordinance number 6, approving the designation of A&D Investment LLC as an eligible and qualified project sponsor pursuant to the Article 15 of General Municipal Law for the purpose of the sale of 211 James Street for $18,000.
I had a question. Is this, I'm just asking this, and I will be asking it for all legislation in my district moving forward. Is this a Utica residence, given the issue we had with the Overstons? That's going to be my regular question. But is this a Utica resident? And, yeah, so I'll start there. It said,
I hope that everybody has announced the presentation of this project will be on that day for the public hearing.
Oh, okay.
They scheduled that presentation.
Oh, okay, that's
And then
good
we
to
can
know.
barrage
Right.
them as many questions as we want
Right.
and go from there. If we're okay.
Councilman, could we please get on the mics? Thank you.
I
No, no
have
problem. Just,
So I got one question. Is it? I'm sorry. Are you done?
I was gonna,
I'm
yeah.
going.
I'm all
Sorry.
set.
Actually, we
So-
should probably wait for Brian Thomas,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah, I think my question is gonna be for him, so
Yeah.
yes.
We go back to it.
So can you just explain to me, I just want to verify how this whole system works now. So tonight, we're voting on a public hearing, correct?
Correct.
So because I'm on the Urban Renewal Board along with Mr. Councilman Burmaster, and I'm all for this project. Just recently, a lot of other stuff has been coming up that I wasn't aware of when I voted on this. So I have no problem with them coming for the presentation, but so how it works, they give us a presentation, we put it in committee and come back and vote on it, or do you have to vote on it that night?
Nope.
Or-
Nope.
You can stay in committee for as long as you want.
So after they give us our presentation, if we have questions on any of this,
It can
we
remain
could
in
say,
committee.
we're gonna put it in committee,
Right.
have a committee meeting and talk. We don't have to vote on it that night after
That's
their presentation.
Councilman, can I have the floor for a quick second?
Council President, you have the floor.
The simplest way to look at it is this. Once the public hearing happens, then it can be voted on.
It can be, but it
But
doesn't have to
prior,
be.
it cannot. That's the delineation.
Okay.
But there's no you don't have to after the public hearing that moment. It's up
Oh.
to the floor.
Okay,
Okay.
And
Right.
what
Okay,
we're
that's-
doing tonight, we're putting the sale of the property into committee and waiting until the council has at least 5 votes to pass.
okay.
All right?
That's, yep, I'm fine. I'm
I
fine.
had a further, in relation to that, so maybe we could give the developer who is coming to do that presentation at the next council meeting, I would like if they could give us a very short synopsis of the developments that they're working on currently, where they stand, what kind of progress they're making, just to give us a very brief 1 page that describes each one of the
All right,
projects
if
that they're
you want,
working
if you've got a set pre-questions, what
Yeah.
I would do, I would send it to our clerk and they'll forward
Okay.
it to the developer.
Okay,
So they'll have every information
Right.
you may need.
okay, so I'm gonna do that, I'll get in touch, yeah, I'll do that through.
Celeste,
Yeah.
we want what they've done, what they're doing, and what is completed,
Okay,
and the times they were awarded, if you're gonna send that.
Why don't we schedule the meeting 5 PM or 5:30 PM before our caucus?
We can.
that's
we
a good
can-
idea. What
um,
was the 4th thing you just said,
The public
Joe?
hearing, then you want to change
Done.
the time of the public hearing?
When did they get them? You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
Once they're done.
The presentation should be out in the public too. We're gonna do 2 presentations? Don't you want the public to be invited for the presentation too? All right, but you can always keep it in committee for 2 more weeks, doesn't matter, till you guys are set.
But I'm gonna send an email to the clerk asking for some specifics, so that when they do come to this meeting in 2 weeks,
They
they
can
know,
say that they're prepared.
they know what kind of questions we have for them.
Sounds good.
do we have,
Do you have your mic on?
yes. Do we have an appraisal that can be attached to this 1.5? Like, is this how much it's worth? It's this under, you know what I mean? That if it's worth 2 or 3, this could be a stupid question, but if it's worth 2 or 3 million, I want to know how the city got to this number 1.5.
I think we can move to assessor's office and get some type of value of the property from there? What do you think, Brian?
The tax assessment's in the project description,
It is?
yes.
Okay.
But that's a tax assessment, not a value appraisal.
Well, I guess the only person that can actually value the property that's in-house would be the assessor. Is that correct, Brian?
Yes, or a private appraiser. We don't have an appraisal of the property. But keep in mind that it's a structure that needs $13 million worth of works.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not.
Question.
Yeah.
We get $1 for it, we're coming out ahead.
Yeah.
One of the questions I had was, I know a lot of these properties that we have throughout the city usually auction them off. But we never
Not-
auctioned this off, right? It didn't go out to the public and say, we're gonna sell this building or this garage.
The only
Give me a-
properties we auction off are those outside, that fall outside of the boundaries of the Utica Urban Renewal Agency.
Okay, so this
So
was
it's
just a
generally north and
private
south
deal
Utica.
between the developers and the administration?
Yes, they offered the 1.5 million.
Okay. I'm sure we spoke to others as well that maybe not have offered that much,
Maria?
right?
Burmaster, you have the floor.
I've got the assessment for the Kennedy parking garage here. It was 3.991.
Okay.
That was on the property that we had talked about in committee
On
So-
urban renewal, you mean?
on urban renewal,
Okay. Well, maybe you can update Jody with it and go from there.
okay?
All right.
I mean, they gave it to us when we,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think
Delvin
Delvin did.
Update Delvin on it, would you? Thank you.
So then how do we get, this is just so I know, so I can answer all these questions that populate on Facebook or other places, right?
All right.
So if it's 3.9, how do we get to 1.5? That's just the best deal with their negotiations, or that's just what you offer?
That's what that's what the developer offered.
The developer offers us that they're willing to pay for it. Okay. I'm cool.
Moving on. Ordinance number 12. Oh, never mind. Resolution number 13. This is for calling for a public hearing for 125 Thomas Street in the amount of $8,000.
Good.
Next is,
That's calling for sale. First one was public hearing, second one.
yeah, I know, I was going to the next packet. Next is Resolution number 1, Commissioner of Deeds for Say Pazwawa.
Ooh, good luck on that one.
And
You speak 7 languages in the
Let me ask you something. Did you ID this guy? Huh? Did you ID-
It's a female, and we speak 7 languages in the codes department now to better serve our residents.
7 languages.
7 languages.
May God bless the codes department.
Yeah.
Okay.
moving on. Resolution number 2, proclamation to honor local businessman Francis Pezzolinella. Any questions, concerns, thoughts?
I do want to offer, if I can, some language. I wrote it down. 1 second. Where did I write? Where is it? Okay, yes. This is just a thought. I take very seriously the not overstepping. It's not in my district, right? It's in the first ward, and all day long I believe in supporting businesses and making sure that we honor them for a number of things. It's a resolution, it's not a law, it's not binding or anything like that. So when I was asked to support it, I do, right? But there was some language that was troubling to me in reading it, and I pondered about it because at first I said, well, it's a resolution. I'm not about to make this a big argument or anything for, it's a resolution honoring something good. I don't want to politicize it, right? Because it's good. But then I was approached about it from constituents. And then in reading the language, given the climate of what's doing the small business incubator and stuff like that, and then people do look at Facebook, they do get ideas from other people. That's just the political dynamic. Someone raises an idea or a problem, constituents see it from other people, then I get the calls about what do you think about this. So I do think that the tone in the in the third whereas, for me, it's a little bit off-putting because it reads as though Francis is able to do this right is in an ambitious undertaking, which it is, in the time where most business persons were holding back from going forward. And in the middle of a pandemic, that language just seemed a little bit insensitive because those who did not go forward for many reasons. I mean, maybe they didn't have the money in a climate where businesses are closing down. It's one thing to say, great job for helping to support the city and adding to the vibrancy. Ocean Blue and Nostril is the rave of the city now. But I just didn't want to do that and have language that might have been insensitive to other businesses who might have had to close down some, even in my district that had to close or get new ownership. So if I could offer a language, I'll be willing to do that. But if it's off the table, then I don't even want to waste my breath if it's not something willing to be offered. So it's not my resolution, so I wanted to ask the sponsors if they would take an amendment.
I'm good the way it reads. Jack?
I'm reading it.
I mean, you could put the word courage in there if you want, but I'm good the way it reads.
Was it the third whereas?
Yeah.
No, the third.
Third.
The third. Whereas each of the endeavors entailed a significant amount of time and financial investment at a time when most businesses are holding back and going forward.
I have no problem with it.
Very clear, ambitious undertaking. Where most businesses are holding back and going forward. What this just tells me, it sounds like you think that they're rubbing their nose in it, but I don't see it that way. I think, what I see is that they had the fortitude to work through it and to go forward, even though there are issues out there. Not the point where they're rubbing their nose into the point where, hey, we're doing it and other people can't. It doesn't, I don't think it sounds like that. I think it sounds like, hey, when most businesses were holding back, it doesn't say why they were holding back, but it says, well, we're holding back. We had the fortitude, we had the insightfulness, we had we felt we could do it. I don't see that being bad.
The way I read it too is that,
I just don't see it being bad.
people come up with plans and then things happen. So say you were planning to open your business, and I'm just coming right from the heart and the way it comes from my family, is that we had all shipments of food ordered and everything ready for right before the pandemic hit, and we had to close everything down. So we had to throw out tons of stuff, and then we had to wait a year and a half, almost 2 years, and sit on this and say, okay, we're gonna push this through and do it again. And in the end, we could have just said, you know what, it's been too much, we can't afford it at this point. In our head, we were saying, you know what, yeah, we had to take out a loan to start it. Yeah, we had to take out a loan to get out there and do it. It was scary as hell, but we did it. And we're doing it, and we're pushing through it. That's how it was meant to be read, So for me, it's a little personal, and it's just one of those things where it's like, you know what? Yeah, it wasn't meant to be that way. I can't see how you could see it that way, because it's just how one person reads one thing or another person reads it. But when I read it, I don't see that. I see what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling in my heart and what I'm thinking in my head. So I'm sorry if it's off, but that's kind of where I'm coming from.
See, can I?
Of course.
Thanks. So I see it in a way that I think is similar to the way that Delvin sees it. And I think that you can say all the positive stuff about what your brother did and simply not make reference to other business persons. You could make reference to the difficulty of a pandemic, to the difficulty of an economic downturn, but not, because it does by implication say when most business persons were holding back from going forward with equally ambitious undertakings, and Francis Pezzolino had no such fear, so they were afraid and he wasn't. And so I think that there would be a way to say this, to say what was good and fortitude and courageous about what he did, and simply not make reference to the choices that other people made. And I mean, I worry about slighting other business owners who lost their businesses. And I think that we should be expressing sympathy for them, sympathy sympathy for them. And there's a word I want, like alliance with them. We should be in alliance with the people who do great things for the city and open beautiful new restaurants, and the people whose businesses don't make it, and the people who've been slogging away at this for 40 years. I think we can just say what's great about these new businesses and not make any reference to any other business people. That's how I would prefer to make the language.
So the sponsors say that they're okay with it.
Yep.
I'm okay with it. The current position is,
This
anybody else?
resolution, all you need is 5 votes, so I'm good.
Moving
I do like the fact it says Rick's Famous Juicy Burger.
They are delicious.
That I like.
Thank you. Next, ordinance number 3, Councilmember DeBrango, intersection where stop required. Ordain that section 2-16-358, Schedule C, intersection where stop required, be amended to include the following: Pleasant Street and Mohawk Street northeast corner, to control westbound traffic on Upper Pleasant Street. Be it further ordained that the proper signage be erected where necessary. Are you okay with this one? Next, Councilman Beatrice and Councilman Williamson, amending section 2-22-7 of the Utica City Code of Ordinances. Be it ordained that section 2-2-7 of the Code of Ordinance is hereby amended by adding subsection H to read as followed. Second notice of violation would be received 125%. Third violation would be 150%. Fourth would be 175%. Fifth would be a violation of, it would receive 200%. You want to speak on this?
Yes. So this is all about, and every one of us has a district and has problems with people calling with grass being overgrown, property not maintained. And I don't know if I have more of them than anybody else, but I found myself starting back in April and May 2 or 3 times calling Marcus all the time, feeling like we're going nowhere with it. So Councilman Williamson and myself, we got with Marcus. Marcus got with his department, and we reached out to Corporation Counsel. It went through that. Marcus, speak up if I'm talking out of turn at all. And we came up with this to try to, what's happening in a lot of these situations is these landlords and absentee houses are using the city to maintain their property. I mean, there was, I believe it's $50, Marcus, and please interrupt me if I'm wrong on my numbers. I believe the first time it's $50 every time they go there. So if they had to hire a contractor, you know, they go the whole time, and we cut their grass, basically.
Well, I think it's, and I'll just stop you because I don't want anybody to get the false impression.
No.
So most of the things we're doing, I would say our average price is, the most frequently reoccurring price is $285, right? So it's
Okay.
not cheap to have the city cut your grass. But the issue is the frequency, right?
Right.
So I have to develop a case, and it has to be a violation before the codes department can order what's called an abatement, to order the grass cut. So usually we can do that maybe every 6 weeks, maybe every 2 months, realistically. When the grass has to be above 10 inches.
Right.
So if you had a service or a property manager cutting your grass, he would cut it weekly or bi-weekly.
Right.
So you're paying him, whether it's $40, $50, every week, whereas the codes department's gonna do it twice a year. So you end up saving in the end, and I've had property owners tell me, I'll just wait for you guys to cut.
Right.
You just mentioned 10 inches,
Yeah.
12 inches, what was it?
Well,
Can't we decrease that? Can't we-
it technically has to be above 11 inches.
Okay, can't we decrease that as council persons where, I mean, a good 6 inches, you know, I mean, that's pretty darn high. I mean, you're talking,
You guys
This
can
time?
do whatever you want. It's
Okay.
10 inches, it's a state law now. You can make it a
Oh,
city
that's a
law.
state law?
And put
Okay.
it under 10, because with the frequency of the rain, some people's lawns get high and they wanna make sure it's egregious before we punish it. But there's a long wait period.
okay, I mean, if it's a state law, I'm okay with it. I didn't know if you just came out with a figure,
No.
because
It's a
now
state
you
law.
wait, like you said, 6, 8, 10 weeks before it gets to 11 inches again, and then we have to go back. But it's an eyesore for a good 4 or 5 weeks before we even, you know what I mean?
So how is the price determined? You said the average is 285, so how are we determining the price?
It goes by,
Square footage?
no,
That's what
it
they
goes
told me, the
by
average cut was.
the amount of workers that they bring to a site,
Okay,
and then the amount of hours they spend.
so workers and hours,
Hours.
Every
okay.
minute is an hour,
Right.
right? So if you bring a worker there, you're paying them for that hour to cut the grass. If there's 2 workers, if there's 3 workers, the Parks Department determines the price based on the amount of workers and how long they spend.
I like
Okay.
to, but he wants to pass this one. The only thing, council members, I got is a little bit of verbiage problems, maybe,
Well,
somebody can help
yeah.
me. Go, I'm sorry.
I just have, so my objection, and I talked to Joe about this, is that it seems like, so if it's a, let's say we get to the 3rd violation and we're looking at 150%, and let's just for the sake of argument say that there was a property that they abated and the Parks Department came back and said, well, that cost us $200. We had 2 guys there for X number of hours. It cost us $200. Now in the 3rd violation, we're gonna charge them $300.
Second violation, you would charge them $312.
She's talking 150%, which she's correct on her math.
150%
Oh,
of
okay,
200
okay.
is 300.
Correct.
So I'm just,
Can I just say that while you're saying that? How about the size of the lot too? Do we?
that's what determines how long it takes them.
That's what determines how long it takes.
That's the base price, which we
Right,
don't
because
know.
we're not gonna.
That's variable.
Because we try to, look, it's easy for the Parks Department, if the Parks Department is building, it's easy for the Parks Department to determine how long their guys were on site.
Right,
If they're measuring lots
Right.
and going to the assessor, then you're adding a whole nother bureaucratic step
right,
that we're paying them for their time. We don't pay employees by the lot size, we
Right.
pay them by the hour.
right. So, but wait, so I hadn't finished my question. So, all right, so let's say that we had a lot that the time and time and number of employees it would take, the Parks Department comes back and says, yep, we're charging $200 for that. Now, on the 3rd violation, we're gonna charge them $300 for that, even though it took us the exact same amount of time and the exact same amount of employees.
Yes.
So
And
that strikes me as we're somehow making kind of a, I understand wanting to provide them with an incentive to be better citizens, but what are we doing with that extra $100?
Okay, so if I can explain, for a second, the process. Most people, if not all people, unless it's extremely egregious, right, we'll send them what's called a notice of order first, before we send an abatement. They have 10 days to clean it up from the time we send a notice of order. Then we send an abatement, and there's a gap between when we send out the abatement and when parks can go to cut. So you're talking another 5 to 10 days. So they've had 20 days to alleviate this problem,
Right.
most times before we show up on the property.
Right.
If you're somebody that's making us do that 2, 3, and 4 times a year, and every time you need 20 days, and we gotta wait 3 months to cite you in between, the amount of time that Parks spends at your property doing the cutting, combined with the amount of time codes have to spend monitoring your
Doing the
property because you
paperwork.
don't take care of it,
Okay.
it should, in my opinion, it should be an increasing scale because of the time we could be doing other stuff. The Parks Department actually cuts our parks.
No, I get that, but it doesn't take any longer to do it on the 3rd violation than it does on the 1st violation.
No, but if we go to your house frequently, you're taking us away from other things. I got problem houses in my area, right?
Right.
There's probably 15 citywide, right?
Right,
My codes officers spend a disproportionate amount of time at the problem houses. If they cut their grass, I would have to send somebody there 3 times a week to make sure that their property is in there.
Can I?
Yeah.
Actually, Delvin has the floor.
Sorry.
Thank you for.
What happens after the 4th? I mean, because if you're at the 3rd violation, you're probably gonna be at the 4th violation, because you don't care, right? So then what happens after that? I mean,
I don't think it's gonna be that much grass in the wintertime.
That's how long the process takes, 3
Yeah, we're
rounds.
complaining about the snow
to
on
go
the
through.
sidewalk.
then we go, but then do they stay at 4 property, right, as a violation? Like you, whatever the price is, 200%, we're gonna, every time we go there was 200%.
You wanna add one?
But,
Add?
but, when do we say we're not coming? We're going to, like, is it that they would abate your property? Like, when do we say we're tired of coming there to do this?
By doing that, we punish the neighbors
So
because
can,
they live next to the properties.
right,
And then the other thing that I wanted to say about that is, there's 2 properties that have had 4 violations in 2020. This isn't like a citywide issue. There's a handful of properties that we do, and what happens typically, what we find is they don't pay them. Then, when it comes time to adjudicate their tax bill, they have a realtor or a lawyer dispute it, right? And a lot of times it gets negotiated out. So to me, there has to be some kind of compensation for the amount of times we gotta spend on these 10 properties.
So, I just want to Celeste's point, the object of this whole deal is to penalize the person. So if you did it once, it's kind of like, I believe, if you get a speeding ticket, or you get points the first time, then you get more points the second time. So you keep doing this, the reason is to try to deter it. I think it should go up. I think the fine should go every time that I think you should go there the first time. They give them a warning and say, listen, this is what's gonna happen. Let them know, and if they do it, it's up to them. And kind of to Marcus's point, if you were in the fourth time and the amount is that large, okay, it's probably gonna they're gonna cut a deal to cut it in half or something anyways, according to what you're just saying. I didn't realize that. So at least if it's a large amount, we're getting something out of it, where if it's a small amount and they're gonna negotiate it, you're gonna get nothing out of it. I mean, let's face it, we gotta, I don't know about all you guys, but you guys all have phones and you all get calls. And what's your biggest call that you get? The city's a mess, there's garbage all over, the people aren't taking care of their property. It's time we step up and make sure and hold people responsible. That's my point, and we all have laws, and you need to follow the laws, and if you get a warning on it, I think you need to follow this. I think we're in August right now. I think if we wait around much longer, it's gonna be December or November, and we're probably gonna have to come up with something to handle the problem with snow. But I think, and I'm asking my colleagues to pass this tonight. And if down the road it don't work, we can always amend it and come up with different solutions. But, I mean, this is a pretty substantial fine. I was under the impression myself that it was either $100 or a $50 straight fine. I didn't realize it was as much as that. So this, my colleague, Mr. Miola, we were talking about it was not a sufficient fine, but when we go to that amount, it's a pretty significant fine. Would you agree with me on
I
that?
would agree 100%.
Right. So I'm just asking you guys for your support on this.
You have my support. I just want to make sure that the
Councilwoman-
landlord, the owner of the property, make sure they know the rules when you have that first violation. They know what's going to happen second, third, fourth, and fifth time. Not a surprise to them. They're hand delivered or mailed, whatever it may be, that they know the price is going
I
up.
think it's worth pointing out, and Stephanie can talk about it, I think it's worth pointing out that they can call for a hearing with me, with the codes commissioner, right? Not me, but my office. And, before it gets put on their tax bills. And they can argue existential circumstances. So I've had snowbirds that go to Florida and didn't know their property maintenance guy showed up. Right?
Okay,
I've had people that have been in hospitalized, and they come in and they say, hey, look, I had people that had tenants that they considered dangerous.
They don't normally do it every year.
Councilwoman.
on their property.
Judge Garamone has something to add.
I just wanted to tell you that I discussed this matter with the Assistant Corporation Counsel in the City of Georgia, and we read that statute. It's a very long statute, and it covers everything from soup to nuts. And the important thing to know about it is that it says, paragraph D, that any expense, including administrative cost of city, third, removal, or the abatement of nuisance shall be responsible for the owner, occupant, or person in charge of the property, et cetera, et cetera. Any expense incurred shall be levied against the real property to be assessed and levied by the section. Now, all this is saying is that if you don't do what you're supposed to do, it's gonna be increased. And you're gonna know about the increase when you're notified, I think, when you're notified by the
Property owner.
nuisance, then you're gonna tell them what the law is. And hopefully it encourages the people to do what they're supposed to do. And of course, remember that this law also goes into the winter months. It talks about snow, it talks about garbage, it talks about everything is in the statute. And the common
question is, do you want to keep prolonging this? They took this percentage matter, because I discussed it with Mr. George, and Mr. George has spoken with her superiors upstairs. They picked this percentage as being a way to not be stuck into one mode. They've got a mode, you got a percentage and they work from there. But what the cost is going to be, we don't know until they do it.
Yeah.
So, and the person who keeps getting it is going to be, and it's levied. It's levied on the tax. So there's not much more you can do with it. There are a lot of suggestions, but now here's August. You know, you've got about 3 more months of grass. September, October.
Oh, don't say that. More grass, more grass.
September, October. Grass will keep growing, depending on what our weather's going to be. And neighbors complain, they complain about gardens and everything else. And I just say that at some point you just have to move. And
No.
and I don't know how many times you can revise this.
I don't know, is she okay?
I think that
You want to hold it?
codes enforcement officer believes this is something he can work with after talking to Mr. Brown and everybody else. So, it's their ordinance.
Can I have I have a couple questions
I
still.
don't know more what I can say, but it's 220 something.
I was just gonna add 2 points to
Very
just clarify. Just to your point, any issues with notice, that's in the statute, so we would add that notice that any second or third violation would be, so they'd have notice of that. And then with respect to the percentages, as Judge Garamone had said, we did it that way because if it applies to other things like garbage, each of those things are quantified differently. So it's just it's based off of those percentages, and the statute itself, or excuse me, the ordinance itself is unclear. It just says expense. So for each different thing, they're slightly calculated differently. So that's why we did the percentage-based system versus a flat fee of $25, $50, because if if something's only costing $25, there's not really a fine there.
Thank you. 2 quick well, I don't know if they're quick. One is, what are other cities doing? What are the best practices out there? Do we know of other cities doing something similar? That's my first question. And then my second question is, to Marcus's point about that every time you have to do the abatement, there's all this paperwork and codes officer's time. Can we rewrite the ordinance so that once in a single year you've been deemed that we need to abate your grass, we can keep abating your grass without going through all those steps every time? So once in one calendar year, we've, you said written written the order, written the abatement, given the appropriate time. Once we've done that once, we do that in May, we're gonna keep cutting your grass every 2 weeks without going through that whole process. Could we do that?
We can, it just says we gotta give them sufficient notice. The problem is, there's a lag, right, between when we post an abatement and when parks can actually cut it. So
Right.
that serves as a notice no matter what. So we have to print out a sheet, put it on their door, we're coming to cut your grass if you don't clean it in this amount of time. And then when parks have cut it. So the first time we'll mail a notice and order.
Right.
We mail every abatement.
Right.
So there's no really way to cut it down because we have to post it in order to cut it.
Right. But can we shorten that time so that we're just doing less of the paperwork, the bureaucratic work after the first abatement?
I think we already do.
Okay.
Like after the second time, we're not gonna send what's called a notice and order.
Oh, okay,
We just do
okay.
the abatement, but that's still.
Okay,
a step.
okay. So what about my first question?
So with respect to that, and I would just add that obviously the purpose of it is so we're not using all of our Parks Department going back every 2 weeks and not being able to do their other duties,
Right,
manage
right.
properties. I looked into a couple other villages and towns. A lot of them had very similar ordinances regarding removal and cutting of grass. A lot of them had a percentage though for their administrative fees. So I think they picked it up on that end. So it would be whatever expense plus a a 25% administrative fee. I only found one town, and I never actually called because when I spoke with NICOM, they didn't have any regulation, or excuse me, any thing in their files regarding increased fees for violations. But the one that I had seen was an increased inspection fee. So it was every time they went to inspect, it was an additional fee on top of it. And they did theirs. They didn't do theirs based on percentages. They did theirs based on a flat charge for inspection. So a lot of them were either admin fees or an inspection fee that were tacked on to the initial expense.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Burmaster, you have the floor next.
Well, I want the people to realize we're not in the business of cutting grass, that shouldn't be You know, and to start them out the next year as a new, I think if they were at tier 3, they should continue at tier 3 until they reach the 4th, and once they're at the 4th, they stay there, and it doesn't matter anymore. You do away with the other 3 steps, and you fine them the 200% because they got to learn. I guess that's all I have to say.
No, listen, it was something that we considered, so we've been talking about this law for a long time. It's come out of a lot of work, and this is where it ended up, and it's the council's purview to change whatever they want. The issue with that, initially when it came on, was that properties change hands. So then you would have to be talking about an individual, and some properties are in LLCs, and so it becomes much more difficult to do that.
Council President, you have the floor.
Someone had mentioned justification for the increase in cost, so I did want to just follow up on that. So throughout the year, you know, we set the budget during budget season, we passed the budget, et cetera. Throughout the year with E&A, with deal with transfers. So I want to relate this directly to that. I did speak with a bunch of the Parks Department guys over the past couple of years, repeatedly over people calling about taking care of the grass in the parkway, et cetera, the different parks, the baseball fields. One of the big reasons they're short-staffed is because they're out cutting these lawns quite a bit. And then when they're out doing those lawns, when they have to take care of the parkway, that translates into overtime. So this increase in cost for these fines is absolutely warranted. So I just wanted to just support that, that this is not just some egregious increase in fines. The city does take it on the nose, not just because they have to spend the time, but then once they spend that time, now we have to pay overtime to keep up with the things we are supposed to be doing. So I just want to throw that out there.
Councilman Miola, you have the floor next.
Thank you, Ms. Majority Leader.
At times just don't have the money to pay somebody. Does the city have anything where if somebody needed to use a lawnmower, or could they call you in the event that they couldn't get their lawn done? You know, let's say, older, somebody retired or something like that. I mean, there's always ways that we could tweak things down the road. But I mean, I know there's some older ladies in Cornhill and in West Utica. Their husband just could have died. Maybe there's no neighbors that can mow the lawn. Is there something that we have that we could address to that down the road as well?
There's 2 tools in place, and I don't know if they're sufficient for you. That would be for you to decide. But the 2 tools in place are, when we send them a notice, they can call our office and ask for an extension. So beyond the time we name to fix the problem. I gotta find somebody, I gotta do something, and if they do that in writing, I typically grant extensions. The second thing is they can call for a hearing after the fact because they had some kind of existential circumstances that they thought they were billed. Really, those are the only 2 mechanisms we have in place right now.
But that's not the type of call that, with these abatements, that's happening, right? It's not the old lady on.
I mean, it's happened, and we usually take it off their bill. I mean, it's happened. I mean, there's sometimes there's existential circumstances. But we're talking about, I did back of the envelope math on this, right, before I came down here. And we're talking about 15 properties. We're talking about 15 properties. The highest charge that's extra of all these 15 properties is an extra $300. So we're not talking about life-altering costs, and we're not talking about abundant, the 5 properties that give us the most problem in the city. What do we do to try to get these people?
They're redundant. They keep on coming back again.
Yeah.
All right.
So in the event, if we did have something like that, we could waive the charge or something like that in the event. All right, as long as we could do that. I'm good with that, and when this comes to pass, I will be voting on it.
All right, if everybody's good with it. This is an ordinance, so it has to be unanimous. Everybody good with it, the way it stands?
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving forward, ordinance number 5, residency waiver for the position of electrical inspector for Larry Kine. Everyone okay with this?
Go to Frankie DeBrango.
I'm not okay with this, and first of all, I'd like to know how much the position pays. Are there benefits to this position? Are we subbing it out now? Can we sub it out to maybe someone within the city limits? From what I understand, it just doesn't pay enough. So I don't know, what does this position pay before we even vote on it?
Okay, so it's a grade 21, and actually, I should have had the advertisement for the job. I don't have the exact figure, but it's around, it's high 40s, like 47, 48. It's a grade 20, it's a grade 21. and it does have full pensions and benefits. The problem is,
Plus benefits?
yeah,
Okay, let me ask another question. How much do we actually take in on electrical inspections?
right now,
Yeah,
$30.
okay, $30. How many inspections is it gonna take us to take care of that salary? Can't we sub it out?
No, it's gonna be more because the council changed the law. So, right now, we rely on a third party. Like you asked, if we sub it out, we rely on a third party to do the inspections. Our electrical board, this started before I was codes commissioner, but I've become familiar with the issue. So our electrical board had two problems with subbing out, right? It's on the contractor to sub out. So, if the contractor subs it out, and you're an electrical inspector, how likely are you to call him on bad work? You're relying on him for money, right? So we're finding there's a lot of shoddy work that's being let go because the contractor's paying the third party. And we have no expertise in the city to determine if it's bad work or not, because we don't have an electrical inspector. That's number one.
Why can't we put this in a contract that he cannot sub it out?
We have. We put an RFP so the city can sub out the work as opposed to the contractor, and we didn't get responses to that RFP, because nobody wants to do it for us, because we're gonna charge a set fee based on our permits, and they wanna be able to charge what they've been charged.
Well, I looked at the budget. I don't know. It said in the budget, electrical license, $35,000 a year was budgeted. Does that mean that's the fees that we're charging? I didn't see anything else in the budget to say electrical permits, how much we get per year. Is it,
No,
how much?
those are
So what do we
electrical.
take in yearly on these inspections?
They're part of our building permits. Again.
It's in the
right-
building
Right now,
permit?
not much, because we don't do the inspections. All we do is grant the permit. You see what I mean? So we don't do the inspection, so the permit fee is $30. So whenever we do a permit fee, it's $30. If we did this, we would do the inspection, and then we would get paid based on the amount of work the inspector has to inspect.
Right. Now, what happens if, let's say, our person inspected it and something does go wrong? Or we're open to a lawsuit, am I right?
Yeah, but it's already the law. The council already passed this law. And then the idea was, yeah, we're open to a lawsuit anytime we inspect something and it doesn't work out. Whether it's codes, whether it's electrical, whether it's plumbing.
But if we subbed it out, or
But if we
a
subbed it
contractor
out,
did it,
we
it's
might
under
be
their
sued.
liability.
Well, that depends though, because the lawyer said at the time, that maybe we're at fault for subbing it out.
Yeah.
Because we have a codes department and we farmed it. So, I don't know the litigious things, I just know that on our end, from a commissioner's standpoint, if you were me, you would probably feel the same way I do, and legislators might feel the same, so I don't know. But I like to have the experience in-house. I don't wanna rely on another guy to tell me this is okay, and I have nobody in the city that has the expertise to check it out.
Yeah. I would like to know the actual number that we would actually make on electrical permits or inspections or whatever it may be. I would like to know that number.
Heather did a budget, and I can go upstairs and find it around the time of what the projected, if we hired an electrical inspector, what the projected increase would be versus his salary. And it was like a $3,000 difference, so, you know, if his salary is 47, then it's 51. She did the budget at the time where they passed the ordinance.
Not counting the benefits.
Right.
We would be losing money.
No,
What I'm saying,
because she counted his benefits. I'll get you the budget, because
Yeah.
there's projects like a hospital, right? Hospital gets an electrical.
we
permit.
charge, I understand,
It's
$30.
$70, 35 and 35. And the person that's inspecting is getting about 20,000 from what I understand.
Right.
But why can't we sign a contract with a contractor, RFP, and take a certain percentage of what they're charging? If they charge 20,000 and we get 25% of that, the city,
Because we put it out and nobody responded to the RFP.
you put out the job title, you
No,
put
we
out this
yeah,
job.
we put out
An
an RFP for a
RFP.
third-party inspector.
Marcus did.
For a third, I didn't see that.
Yeah, and they don't, what would be their incentive to do that? Like maybe that they're exclusive with Utica if they thought that everybody else was gonna go
Well,
away.
I think their incentive, if you're gonna hire one, well, they better jump on this
Well,
bandwagon.
now they
and-
might have an incentive because they didn't think we were gonna be able to find somebody. But we
Right.
put out an RFP and they didn't respond to it.
Yeah.
I have a quick-
Councilman Moody, you
Yeah,
have
ju-
the floor.
Just a quick question. Every time that we've had to do one of these residencies, because often they say, we don't have nobody in Utica to do it, right? And the person that we're giving a residency to is generally older, right? And one of the, whereas is often that they've been doing it for 20, 30 years, therefore they're the best qualified. So what can we do as a city, maybe through an apprenticeship or something, I don't know if there's people in codes or something, that we can teach our own folks. It's not something to resolve the issue tomorrow, but to start teaching our own folks to do these types of things, because when the 50s and 60-year-olds are gone, are we going to be back in the same issue where we don't have people and we're going to always have to be looking at other cities? So
Yeah, well, because it requires unique circumstances.
Sure.
That's why I believe, in my opinion, that some inspectors were reluctant, didn't think we were going to find somebody, because the level of electrician you have to be to inspect other electricians, you can usually make good money. So we called BOCES, we called the electrical union, we tried to get people. I sent a letter to every master electrician in the city of Utica, right? But they can make money with their hands. So you're asking somebody to take a pay cut to come work here, and then it's needle in a haystack stuff.
Councilman Miola, you have the floor.
I would just like to refer this committee because I was asked a question by some of the administration to give us what process and procedures that they did, how they advertised it, how they got it out there. So
We did, in the mayor's message. It's
in here?
Yeah, I was just gonna actually mention that.
Okay.
It is up.
It did. I mean, we put it on Indeed twice at 2 different salary grades, right? I announced it at all 3 of our electrical tests. We called people, we told people informally when they came into our office and they're electricians. I sent a letter to every master electrician in the city of Utica. It's been on our website for a year. They know this job exists. It's just that if you're an electrician, you make more money in the field than you do working for government.
An electrician, 47,000? I don't know. What?
A master electrician that's qualified to do inspections.
Understood.
Not a journeyman.
Let me ask you a
Yeah.
question. So let's say this gentleman gets appointed and he comes to move to Utica with his family, and when he inspects a property, the only fee that he could charge is the city fee, whatever you decide the
With
fee
the
would
law
be.
that the council-
He's not gonna have another bill to say, okay, this is what the city charged, and now I'm gonna.
No, he works for us. The law that the council
So
passed.
he'll just work off his salary and whatever we make.
Right, the law that the council passed is the permit fee. There's no incentive for him to charge people extra. I mean, it's black and white. The law that you guys passed is black and white.
Councilman Lomedico, you have the floor next, but in the interest of time, I say if this is something we still have a lot more questions about, we have a committee meeting on it. That way there we can make sure
I would
everything
like to
is-
put it in committee because there's several other questions.
and
And
it needs unanimous
It
council.
needs to be unanimous.
All right.
Alright, so at this
Just-
point,
Thanks, Marie. Just quick. Being that he's an inspector, is he gonna be able to do electrical work within the city or anywhere within
No.
Oneida County?
No.
How about within Oneida County?
I can't, no, yeah, I don't think, and this would be more a question for the lawyers, but the way I was explained is that I can't control what he does outside of the city of Utica. As a codes department, we can license, we can grant a permit for the stuff that he can do in our city. And I can't tell Marcy what to do.
Let's just refer this to committee and move on, please.
Well, my only thought with that is that if he's working with some construction firms outside the city and they come into the city as well, there's some issues there.
All right.
and when they come up, we'll talk about
It's
it.
only one
Moving
person.
forward, resolution number 6 would be authorizing the sale of wine and beer to the Handshake City. This would be for Falling for Utica Festival, Saturday, October 9th, 2021, from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay,
Okey-dokey.
Next would be resolution number 7, authorizing the sale of wine and beer to Woodland Farm Brewery. This would be Falling for Utica Festival, same date and time. Next would be for Cooper City Brewing Company, resolution number 8. This would be for the same Falling for Utica Festival. Next would be ordinance number 9, ordinance authorizing the disposal of various city-owned vehicles. Does anyone have any questions or concerns?
I do. So at our last meeting, we ended up rescinding a bunch of legislation because of those, be it further ordained, about the Board of Estimate.
That-
We actually passed legislation and then rescinded it.
That's not why you rescinded it. The
Okay.
reason you all stated on the floor as to why you rescinded it was so that you could follow up to make sure that that language was in prior legislation, and that's what we always did. The clerks can report on that if
Okay.
you'd like.
Okay, I'd like that, yes.
Next is ordinance number 10.
Wait, I was waiting for the clerks to explain this. Oh, okay. And then the other question I had on the same legislation, and it comes up in a couple, is in the second to last, be it further ordained, it says the individual, and I can't tell for the life of me what individual is being referred to there.
It shouldn't, it should be the board.
You
That's
see
where-
what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got it.
After disposition, the individual shall, there's no prior individual that it could be making reference to.
It's the board. This is also an ordinance and it needs
Ordinance number
unanimous.
9.
Yeah, this is also an ordinance. It also needs unanimous.
It says, after disposition, the individual shall report said disposition to the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, and I don't know who that individual is.
Just make an amendment or change it.
Well, it needs, if that's who it is, it just needs to be clear that that's who it is.
Yeah, it says, in the fourth paragraph, hang on, Judge, just so I could just do this quick, because we're way late in this meeting. It says, now therefore be it ordained, it says mayor or his designee is authorized. Then in the be it further ordained, after disposition, the individual shall record. Well, that's the
That's who that
mayor
individual
or his
is?
designee.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I would have rewritten it, but okay.
All right.
Before you go, I brought up the board of, the reason I did that is because this position of property is owned by the town council. And what I wanted to make sure is whether there was a charter revision. There was no charter. If there was, a local law that did So what the town council did is they delegated its power to another body, for whatever reason they did, because obviously the local law doesn't explain that. Just like they delegated it by the present town council of state. That was just done by ordinance or local law, and they changed that. I wanted to know whether it was a charter revision, it was not. And that is the thing I was just checking. In other words, you have not disposed of your power indefinitely, and that particular common council did not disenfranchise the common council's future of that matter unless it went to referendum, then of course it would, but they did. It was a local law that we adopted and recognized as a local law, and I haven't read it.
Thank you.
The only thing I brought up, I want to make sure whether the reduction of power and property are legal, they do not.
Thank you for the clarification, Judge. Next is ordinance number 10, an ordinance authorizing the sale of various city-owned vehicles.
Pass it. You got another set of eyes on it with E and A. Oop, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Next is ordinance number 15, transfer of funds 2020-2021 fiscal year regarding the UPD cost center reallocations. It's go.
I would like to request that all of these go into committee. They came to us on Monday, and I just haven't had the time to review them. Came to us on Monday afternoon. I haven't had the time to read them.
Okay, because it's an ordinance, unless it has unanimous, it's gotta go in committee.
Yep.
So you're saying from here further?
We can vote on the Thursday
Yes.
rules, we can vote on the Thursday rules, but we'll submit the legislation to committee.
Yes, but it has to, I'm not going to vote for these things tonight.
If you have any other questions too, I can report from E&A as well. And-
Yeah.
We're 9 through
Yeah.
8, well, it's not 9 through 18, but the ones after 9.
It's number 15, number 16,
15,
number
16.
17, and number 18.
So all of these are.
We can waive the rule, commit them, and put them in committee and vote on them in 2 weeks.
We don't have to waive the rule though, right, if we're not voting on them?
In order to introduce them and put them
To
into
put them in
committee. we do.
committee.
Well,
We should change that.
this is the committee of the whole in accordance with the rules, so you could just leave it in this committee of the whole, whatever you guys want to do. Just for clarification, though, these are transfers from the 2020-21. The budget director could not be here this evening. If you have any questions, please direct it to the budget director, but if you would also like to reach out to any of the members of the Board of E&A, we can also take your questions as we pass these on Monday, which is why they're here now, because the E&A meeting was Monday, so this isn't a matter of.
Right, no, that's
Yeah,
fine.
I'm just
But there's
explaining.
She's just
Yeah.
saying that she has not had
But
And
there's
that's
an opportunity
fine.
to
Put them
go
in, no,
over
no,
them.
I'm just saying, they don't need to be done now.
There's
Just letting you
nothing
know.
And I do
there.
want to put it in budget committee. When we make stuff to the public, all of this
Yeah.
being in committee of the whole gets confusing when we
Yeah,
call a meeting.
Exactly, okay.
So moving forward, we will do 15 through 18 because they do have to be unanimous, so we will refer them to committee after waiving the Thursday rule. Would that be?
a Utica resident? Ordinance six?
Ordinance 6,
Yes, just to answer your question, 6, 8, 18, 20, 22, and 24 are all Utica residents.
I like to move stuff from the committee if my colleagues, I mean, the one for the vehicles are going to discard, but the ones for the highway, Jackie, okay with that now?
It's like a.
The highway lighting for our responsibility? All right,
I know where it is.
all right.
And as I remember, you were concerned that they were sort of, might be too close to the road and the ground at the same time?
Well, they're like, they're 4 feet from the curb. They're gonna get, I know they're.
People submit, it's like eBay.
And we're
Right.
responsible.
And then we're gonna be responsible for replacing it.
I think it was a bad engineering job, and I think we're gonna have to eat it because.
So can I ask,
Why are we?
why are you for
Those vehicles weren't even
it? Then why are you for it?
I'm not for it.
They were literally junk.
Okay, then why are
Can you
you,
get the maps yet?
What I'm giving you is that if you wanna have it re-engineered, you wanna have it dug up. I mean, I don't know what our.
There's maps coming from Mike Mahoney pending. He doesn't have them yet, but he did request from the state maps for all this to present to you guys.
And I would,
Sure.
the only thing I would like to say, if they do fall within the actual, where they should be, or are they closer than the road than they should be?
We're going to hold off on that.
Yeah.
All right.
can I just ask
Put
one?
words in my mouth.
Okay, so I apologize for that, Jack. So why do we have to take possession of them, Mr. Miola?
According to the state, that's a normal process that they do.
Okay.
After the state bids it out, and after the state bids it out, it's our responsibility to maintain it and to keep it, in good condition.
Is that a law or just the practice?
That's a practice
Okay.
for all municipalities. The
Okay.
state does all the work, they put all the costs up in front, and it's
Right.
our job
And
to
then we
maintain.
take over.
Yep.
Okay.
But I really think that those are too close. And I think they're gonna be dispersed.
Well, we're gonna, hopefully, you're probably right, maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, I guess we gotta go through the winter and find out.
But then I think
So we'll
it's
hold it off for the next
irresponsible
6
to take
months.
possession of them.
Moving forward.
So anyways, let's get
What else
moving.
would you like to take out of committee? Or is that all?
I'm good,
So you're gonna leave those in committee, though?
Yes.
Okay.
If Mike Mahoney's gonna bring us more information and help my
Okay.
colleagues.
And I'd like to see the specs on that too, how far away they should be. The roads are waiting on that codes too, right?
Council President, you have the floor.
Oh, no, I'm just waiting for you to adjourn.
Oh. Meeting adjourned.
All right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 7:30, okay? Just for a quick 2021, 7:33 PM. I'm going to call this meeting of the City of Utica Common Council to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
McNeil, Burmaster, Friend, Miola, Moody, Beatrice, Lometico, DeBrango, Galimi, present.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for the deceased members of the council. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first order of business this evening is to review the minutes from the previous meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to waive reading the minutes, please.
Thank you. The council acknowledges that they've been reviewed. Okay, we have a second from DeBrango was the second on that. Any opposed? All right, the reading of the minutes has been waived. Next order of business this evening is common council guests, which we have none this evening. Thank you. So public hearing. We have a public hearing on the sale of the following properties: 717 Blandina Street, 211 James Street, 319 Lansing Street, 1111 Warren Street, 1007 Lincoln Ave, 128 Addington Place, 139 Addington Place. We have no one signed up to speak on behalf of those properties, so the public hearing is now closed. And I'm going to be moving through and calling for a motion to pull those from committee. Ordinance 4. We have a motion to pull from committee. We have a motion from Miola, second from McNeil. Any opposed from pulling the sale of 717 Blandina Street to Luis Enriquez for $500 from committee? Okay, it's on the floor for a vote.
8 yeas adopted.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to pull ordinance 6 from committee? Ordinance 6, Miola, second from Lometico. Sale of 211 James Street to A&D Investment LLC. It's Juan Carlos Bayarz for $18,000. Any opposed to pulling that from committee? All right, your votes.
8 yeas adopted.
Ordinance 8, we have a motion from Miola, second from Friend. Sale of 319 Lansing Street to Arlington Carbajal for $16,000. Any opposed from pulling that from committee? Okay, your votes.
8 yeas adopted.
Ordinance 18, Miola. Second from DeBrango. Sale of 1111 Warren Street to Mohawk Valley Group, Esteban Bueno for $250. Pull that from committee. Any opposed? No one's opposed. Your votes.
8 yeas adopted.
Ordinance 20, Miola. We have a second from Lometico. That is the sale of 1007 Lincoln Ave to Richard Panetta for $250. Any opposed? Pulling that from committee? Okay, it's on the floor for a vote.
8 yeas adopted.
Ordinance 22. We got Moody with the motion on that one. Got Lometico with the second. That's the sale of 128 Addington Place to Segundo Leandro Mizurumbe for $9,000. Pull it from committee. Any opposed? No one's opposed. Your votes.
8 yeas adopted.
Ordinance 24. Got Beatrice and McNeil on that one. It's like Jeopardy. Sale of 139 Addington Place to Maria Caranjui and Manuel Cisolima for $20,000. Any opposed to pulling from committee? It's on the floor for your votes.
8 yeas adopted.
Okay, we're moving on to URA properties which are not in committee. These are new introductions. So the first, we have Resolution 11, calling for a public hearing on the sale of Kennedy Parking Garage to Downtown Utica Development LLC for $1.5 million from the URA. This is the resolution calling for the public hearing on September 1st, is it? Yes, September 1st. We have Miola moving it. We have a second from Moody. If there's no other motions at this time, it's on the floor for a vote. This is the public hearing.
8 yeas adopted.
Okay, so the public hearing has been called for September 1st on the Kennedy Parking Garage sale. Ordinance 12, which is the sale of Kennedy Parking Garage to Downtown Utica Development LLC for $1.5 million.
We'd like to refer that to committee, Mr. President.
Okay, the motion is to commit. We have a second from Friend. Any opposed to putting that in committee? Okay, ordinance 12 is in committee. Resolution 13, calling for a public hearing on the sale of 125 Thomas Street to Serafin Vasquez Martinez for $8,000. It's the public hearing, the resolution. We have a motion from Miola, second from McNeil. It's on the floor. If there's no other motions, your votes, please.
8 yeas adopted.
Okay, ordinance 14 is the paired ordinance from Resolution 13, sale of 125 Thomas Street to Serafin Vasquez Martinez for $8,000.
Mr. President, I'd like to move that to committee.
Okay, we have a second from McNeil. Any opposed? It's in committee. All right, those pieces are all set. Next order of business this evening, what's that? Would you like the floor?
What committee are you putting it in?
Those are just in committee of the whole. They've always been, yeah. Thank you. Next order of business is public comment period. We have no one signed up to speak for public comments, so public comment period is now closed. Thank you very much. Communications from the mayor. I do have a communication from the mayor this evening dated August 11th, 2021 from Mayor Robert Palmieri. Mayor's message to the Common Council. The outstanding work of city personnel and local service providers shall be commended for their professionalism in securing housing for all tenants of the Olbiston apartments. The gross negligence of the Olbiston's owners allowed the condition of the building to become unsafe, unlivable, and unacceptable. Last month, the Urban Renewal Agency voted to sell Kennedy Parking Garage to a private developer for $1.5 million. The sale of this property would yield a tremendous benefit to Utica taxpayers, as the estimated cost to repair the garage is approximately $13 million. In addition, the sale would put the property on the city tax rolls and allow for future development plans and the potential construction of additional parking. The next step in the process is the Common Council's approval of a public hearing. The administration is proposing several items of legislation for the council's consideration. One of the legislative items would allow for the progressive increase of fees each time the city personnel abates properties for repeat code violators. The administration requests this legislation be placed in committee at this time. Another legislative item is approving a residency waiver for Larry Kinney to become the city's electrical inspector. As the ordinance states, after an extensive and lengthy search, Mr. Kinney is the best candidate who meets all qualifications for this important position. Specifically, the administration took the following actions to advertise the position. On, a little typo in there. On the 6th of June 2020, the Codes Department sent a letter to every city licensed master electrician informing them about the position and requested qualified applicants. Actually, this portion of the mayor's message was reiterated in detail by the Codes Commissioner. So I'll just summarize. In July of 2020, the city sent the posting to IBW and BOCES for potential applicants, etc. Upon reviewing the applications, Larry Kinney is the best candidate, as he is an electrical inspector familiar with our area who often works in the city. Given the level of construction in the city, this position needs to be filled as quickly as possible, and Mr. Kinney would be a tremendous resource and asset to the city. In partnership and coordination with Oneida County, a vaccination point dispensing pod for the Pfizer vaccine will be set up at City Hall on Friday, the 13th at 3 p.m. All residents over the age of 12 can be vaccinated, and walk-ins are welcome. That ends the mayor's message to the council, which also was distributed, of course, to the council members prior to the meeting. There are no more communications from the mayor at this time. Let's see. Miscellaneous communications, I'll move on to that, even if we're not there yet. Cash reports, et cetera.
The Utica cash report for July 2021 is $58.212 million received and filed.
Thank you very much. Reports from the city officers. Chief Ingersoll.
No report.
Thank you very much. Corporation Counsel.
No report.
Deputy Chief Noonan.
I defer my time to Commissioner Phillips.
All right.
You gotta mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, right? Commissioner Thomas.
No report.
All right. Phillips?
Okay, I do want to say publicly, I won't be long, I promise. But there's two pieces of legislation we talked a lot about in pre-conference that code's put in front of the council. And I like to say publicly, regardless of what happens with these two pieces of legislation, that this council has done more for codes in 2 years than I could expect. And I want to say thank you. I put down all of the things you guys have done. You know, we've had problems with metal pieces, people scrapping in their backyards, and you guys passed a law for us to be able to address that. We had a problem with corner stores. You developed a permitting system and set a moratorium on them because they're often a nuisance in the neighborhood. In my budget, you allowed me to create positions in middle management so people didn't feel like they were in a dead-end job, and I had more supervisors to be able to watch my officers. We got a plumbing inspector. The legislation is in for an electrical inspector, so we got more expertise in-house. I was able to offer more attractive positions, so now our department speaks 7 languages when a year and a half ago we spoke 2. And on and on and on, and I think it shows because we're able to do a lot of things. You know, closing down the Obelson was a good example. We made sure everybody in that building had furniture to go to their new apartments with. We mobilized the service networks. So we're not just shutting down a building, we're doing it in a humane way, with a heart and with the intent to find people places to go. And that's possible because of the resources this council has put in to my department and other departments in the city. We don't do any of this stuff alone. So I just wanted to thank you guys and say publicly that it's been a pleasure to work with this particular council.
Here, here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for, Ed, for giving him that extra time.
I was gonna cut him off, but
But it was beautiful, it was beautiful.
All right, thank you. And also, council appreciates the availability the department heads give us, because it's nice that you guys come here to be able to explain things on the spot. All right, petitions, remonstrances, and appeals. First District, Council Member and Majority Leader Marie McNeely, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to start off with resolution number 2, if that's okay with the 2 sponsors. I'd also like to put my name on it. Normally I wouldn't do this, but it is for my brother. This proclamation is to honor local businessman Francis Pezzolinella, whereas the Common Council of the City of Utica wishes to join the Mayor of the City of Utica, Robert M. Palmieri, regarding this praise for a member of our community who had the courage to open not 1, but 2 enterprises at a time when devastating pandemic was gripping the city, state, and nation. And whereas Francis Pezzolinella did create and open 2 dazzling businesses, Rick's Famous Juicy Burgers on Broad Street and Nostro Resto Bar and Lounge on Genesee Street in the former Oneida National Bank complex. And whereas each of these endeavors entailed a significant amount of time and financial investment at a time when most business persons were holding back from going forward in equally ambitious undertakings, and whereas Francis Pezzolinella had no such fear, he had made his plans prior to the pandemic and with courage forged forward with an optimistic view of the city and its future. Therefore, be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Utica does hereby salute and recognize the courage and confidence in the future of the City of Utica shown by Francis Pezzolinella by his significant investment and the opening of 2 new enterprises that will enhance the ambiance of our great city henceforth.
We have a second from Miola.
Mr. President, I'd like to qualify my vote.
Yes, you have the floor.
Mr. Pezzinella, Francis Pezzinella has the courage and the business sense of moving forward in our city, and a lot of other businesses had to do the same. Where I give all kinds of accolades to Mr. Pezzinella and their investment in the city, I also have to give the accolades to the businesses that went through the pandemic, hardship with workers and employees, produce, products, business. They're fighting too. And I also want to give, let alone Mr. Pezzinella's lead on this, for a great example that it can be done. And I'd like to also give the accolades to the businesses that are still working very hard to survive and to keep above the fringe. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? All right, your votes. Let's see.
8 yeas adopted.
Next, resolution number 6. It is a resolution authorizing the sale of wine and beer to Handshake City. This is for the Falling of Utica Festival
doing them all.
for Saturday, October 9th from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Handshake City.
Second from Miola. Your votes.
8 yeas adopted.
Next, resolution 7, authorizing the sale of wine and beer to the Woodland Farm Brewery for the same Utica Festival for Saturday, October 9th from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Handshake City. I'd like to move this piece as well.
Miola's the second. Your votes, unless you have a qualification for some reason.
Lastly, I'd like to move.
Hang on, we didn't call it yet. Can you vote? Thank you.
She's moving.
8 yeas
Trying.
adopted.
Thank you.
And next, I'd like to move resolution number 8, authorizing the sale of wine and beer to Copper City Brewing Company for the same event for the Falling of Utica Festival, October 9th, from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. in the Handshake City.
Miola's the second.
Eight yeas adopted.
All right.
That'll be all tonight. Thank you.
All right. Second district. Councilman Burmaster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have anything tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Third district, Councilperson Friend, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have one very quick thing. I want to congratulate our soon-to-be Governor Kathy Hochul for being on the cusp of taking over being the governor of our great state. I think she's really well equipped to do the job. I wish her all the best. And I'm looking forward to moving into a new chapter in the state of New York with Governor Hochul. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Fourth district and President Pro Temp, Councilman Miola, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move the Commissioner of Deeds, Resolution Number 1. Be it resolved, the Common Council does hereby appoint the following person Commissioner of Deeds for City of Utica for 2-year term, commencing August 11th today to the ending December 31st, 2022. Saw Paz Ha, 1113 Conklin Ave, second floor, Utica, New York, 13501.
Second from DeBrango, your votes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Cast your votes again, please.
8 yeas adopted.
Okay.
Mr. President, I'd like to move a piece of legislation that was committee to whole, ordinance number 1, to dispose of IT equipment back in 7/14/21.
So a motion to pull from committee. Lemetico is the second. Any opposed to pulling that from committee? Okay, it's on the floor. If you'd like to read it,
Mr.
you can
President,
summarize it, I
I'll
suppose.
just summarize it.
Yeah.
Be it further ordained, the property to be disposed of the described following equipment, including computers, monitors, miscellaneous other devices, has been stripped of the hard drives, memory located in the basement of the garage, City Hall area, despite the photos, attachment, and memorandum accompanying this legislation.
Your votes. It's on the floor.
8 yeas adopted.
Mr. President, I'd like to remove and dispose of ordinance number 2 and 16 of 714 because we have revised legislation in our today's
We have a
legislation.
second to the motion to remove and dispose from Moody. Any opposed to that? All right, they've been removed and disposed.
Would one of my colleagues mind moving the legislation 9 and 10 in the future? Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, Councilperson Friend, I'll make sure that those get introduced and placed in committee. I just heard you talking about the E&A ones. Fifth District, Councilman Moody, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. A lot has happened in the Fifth Ward since our last meeting. I want to thank the mayor and the administration for their swift action regarding the Obleston and the tragedy that has been there, and that even though there is a lot that can be said, when you have the number of people out on the street, there was a swift action to try to find housing and accommodations for them. But I do want to make mention because, not to give him the big head, but he does a lot for the city of Utica. And he makes a lot of things happen behind the scenes on behalf of Utica and in particular Cornhill. And I do want to make a special mention to Commissioner Phillips for his work with the Obleston. The situation would have been worse had he not directly been involved with making sure that we humanely dealt with the issue of the Obleston. And so I want to thank him for all of his works and for all of the work that he does behind the scenes to make the city what it is. I also, since our last meeting, I was going to say I had the privilege, but I don't know if it is a privilege when me and Councilman LaMedico get together. But, but me and Councilman LaMedico, we did talk with the chief and deputy chief. We talked with Matullo about the lights and the issues there. And so we are going to be drafting a resolution for the council to consider regarding designating portions of Cornhill as a green light district and calling to bear and informing the public of the issue of why we don't have certain cameras in certain areas. We thought we can just beat our chest and say put the cameras here, there, and everywhere, but it is a tedious process, and so we're making sure that we do everything right to add to the advocacy of getting the cameras up in certain areas in the green light districts, but also making sure that the community is informed. I also want to say publicly that the Collective Impact Network, which is a non-for-profit community development corporation forming in the Cornhill area for the city of Utica, is hosting on August 17th, a informational for young entrepreneurs or small businesses that are interested in the Cornhill Renaissance Center, which will be on James Street. And so if we're going to be rolling out the idea and concept there of the building on James Street, a tremendous investment from the administration and the mayor, as he announced with the initial components of the millions of dollars coming in from the federal government. He committed to a small business incubator space, and so we're going to begin to start sharing more of that idea and that concept with the public. And so August 17th at 7 p.m. at the Thinkubator on Broad Street, we're going to have that meeting to kind of flush that out. That's all, Mr. President, I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. 6th District, Councilman Beatrice, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple things before I introduce the ordinance number 3. First thing I want to say is I want to congratulate the Junior Legion team, Post 229. They had a great season and they won, and I plan on doing a proclamation for them at our next meeting. I'm trying to get with their coaching and trying to get the team here in person so that we can honor them. It was a little bit I didn't have really enough time to organize that, so I'm going to try to do that for our next meeting. The next thing I wanted to talk about is I got to say to my colleagues who did this proclamation tonight for Mr. Panizzala, I know Francis very well. I dealt with him and his family when I'm working with Coca-Cola. Always went out of their way to treat me with the most respect. I enjoy his establishments, and I give him all the credit in the world for what he's done. That made me think a little bit that in my district, I have a lot of people out there too, and I know I'll probably forget some people, but I'm taking some notes sitting here. I'd like to thank a few people who've gone through the pandemic and established their business, made them greater, and some businesses who just struggled, to survive. First and foremost, I think I want to bring up Rob Esch, who I think he's brought the city. Not only did he bring the Comets back, that's really was a big factor in the city's revival, but what he's done with Babes and Cook's Barbecue is very, very well. Sal Baruso at Tavallo's went through this pandemic, remodeled banquet rooms, and this is all during the pandemic. Not only were we all struggling to survive, but they were doing takeout, and it just was a lot. Another fella, Ken Rozier at Breezes, I mean, all last summer when things were bad, he had What the Truck there. It was at a scaled down basis, but people were able to get out a little bit and enjoy themselves. I got Samir at the old, at Milano's. He worked for years. And again, anybody who's listening out there, please, if I forgot you, please call me and I'll honor you the next time. I got Charlie DiCristina. He's been a businessman in this area for years, remodeled the place in North Utica. We got A.J. Whitley in the North End Tap Room. He's a young family man. He, works, his wife works, he works. He has his kids actually there at times. They work, very well, and he struggles. It's a struggle for them, but they were there all the time. Got Jeremy Soldato, Franco's Pizza, Nick Velarde. Okay, I'm going to have a hard time saying his name, Truly Dituri. He opened a second business in the city. Him and his wife run it. They do a great job there. And, out of anybody, I mean, everybody, we should all honor our city. I know it's the 6th Ward, and I probably missed some people, but everybody in the city who struggled through that pandemic, we need to, really honor them and thank them. And I really appreciate everything you guys do. Okay, I'd like to introduce proposed ordinance number 4, okay, amending section 2-22-7 of the Utica City Code Ordinance. Be it ordained that section 2-22-7 of the Code Ordinance is hereby amended by adding subsection H to read as follows. H, any owner, occupant, a person or person in charge of the property receiving multiple notices of violation, directing the violation be abated or removed within a 12-month calendar year, shall be subject to an increased percentage of the expenses as set forth below. Number 1, second notice of violation received, 125%. Number 2, third notice of the violation received, 150%. Number 3, fourth notice of the violation received, 175%. Fourth, fifth notice of violation received, 200%. Be it ordained that the ordinance shall take effect immediately. Pardon me? Upon adoption. Thank you.
A second? We have a second from Miola.
Mr.
And just to remind the council, this does require unanimous vote this evening to pass.
I'd like to add my name to that.
You'd like to add your name. You would like the floor?
Just to qualify, yes, please.
Okay, vote qualification.
Thank you, Mr. President. Those of us who utilize the city services and abuse them, who do not cut their grass, and the city has to go and do their due diligence to cut the grass, it's not stopping here. So those property owners who are taking advantage of the city and their taxpayers, I believe that it's unanimous here with this council. We're not stopping. This is only the first step. If this doesn't resolve it, we're going to take more steps. The city is not here, as my colleague said, to cut residential grass, but we are going to be here to make sure that you're going to cut your grass and maintain your property. And we're going to give our codes department every tool they need to make sure that your property is kept up as the residents around you work very hard to keep their properties up. And thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Your votes? I think we have, there we go.
8 yeas adopted.
All right.
And lastly, Mr. President, I want to reiterate, if I forgot anybody at all, please call me, blow my phone up, but I just wanted to thank everybody for all you guys do. Thank you.
Well said. Any other legislation you need to move? Okay, sounds like a no. Council at large, Jack Lomatico.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I get into any ordinances that I do have 2, 9, and 10. This Saturday, August 14th, for you car and motorcycle nuts out there, at the, it's going to be up at the ski chalet. They're going to have the Parkway Ski Chalet. They're going to have a big motorcycle and car rally there. Will be a ton of cars up there. There'll be entertainment. And this is for the veterans, I think it'd be a great time. I think they'll be having refreshments there, food trucks will be available. It's gonna be for the Purple Heart. So I think that everybody, you have any time on the 14th? It's from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's a $10 donation per vehicle. We have a lot of nice vehicles in this city and the surrounding area. So I think it'd be a good time. Bring your children. It's an outdoor event, so you don't have to worry about possibly the COVID, being that it's outside, knock on wood. So I will be there, and I encourage everyone else to be there. And maybe, Mr. Meal, are you going to have your Corvette there?
Yes, I will, Mr.
Okay.
Mako.
I hope a bird poops on it. Secondly, just a quick story about our lieutenant governor. The first year I was elected to the council, I was told that, and I really didn't know a whole lot about politics, and I probably still don't, but I was told that I was going to meet the lieutenant governor. And being that I was new, I thought that Lieutenant Governor Duffy was still the lieutenant governor at the time. So they said, okay, you're going to meet the lieutenant governor. Why don't you go down to Kitty's on the Canal? We're going to have a little dinner there. And so I go down there, and I sit next to this lady, and I'm talking to her about for 15 minutes. It's very nice. And I go to her, I says, you know, I've been sitting here for 15 minutes. Where the heck is the lieutenant governor? You know, I got things to do. So she turns around, she says, I'm the lieutenant governor. And I says, oh. I says, well, very nice to meet you. So that was my first meeting with the lieutenant governor. Since then, I've had better meetings with her, but very, very nice lady. I think she's going to do a great job for New York State, and I look forward to meeting her again. And I probably owe her a drink after that. So, but that's how it went. The Green Light District. Thank you for inviting me to that. I know the mayor went down this week to Schenectady and looked at some cameras. Hopefully you got some good information for us, see what they're doing on that. Very, very important legislation, and I look forward to working on it with my illustrious pal over there. So, being that said, I'm going to bring two ordinances into. I'd like to introduce the first one, Ordinance 9, an ordinance authorizing the disposal of various city-owned vehicles. I'll abbreviate this. Whereas there are various junk motor vehicles described below that the police department wishes to dispose of, whereas the department has determined that these junk vehicles have been stripped of all Utica parts and have no resale value. There's a 2008 Honda, 2001 Chevy Suburban, a 2006 Ford Crown Victoria, 2011 Ford Crown Victoria, Chevy Suburban, another Chevy Suburban, 2014 Chevy G4500 cabin chassis, 2014 Chevy G4500 cabin chassis, a 2007 Ford E450 ambulance, 2004 Chevy Tahoe, and a Ford F450. Like to bring that forward.
Second from DeBrango. Your votes.
8 yeas adopted.
Thank you. I'd like to now move ordinance number 10, an ordinance authorizing the sale of various obsolete city-owned vehicles. Be it ordained pursuant to section 7-00-7 of the Utica City Charter, the mayor and his authorized representatives is hereby authorized to sell city-owned personal property described below, such as property shall be offered for sale after public advertisement to the highest responsible bidder, or in whatever manner the mayor or his representative deem most appropriate. And it's a 2003 blue Impala, 2003 white Impala, 2003 white Impala, 2003 white Impala, 2002 red Impala. Various city-owned vehicles, in addition, the 1995 Case Payloader, 1990 GMC dumpster, 1994 Oshkosh plow Salter, 1999 Ford 350, 1995 Ford F800 dumpster, 2004 Ferris 20 Pro Cut, a 1994 Jacobson HR 15 rotary motor, and actually two of them. For your vote. or for a second, excuse me?
Second from DeBrango, I'll
Okay.
call it. All right, your votes.
8 yeas adopted.
Thank you very much.
That's
Anything
all I have,
else?
Thank you, Mr.
All right,
President.
thank you. Council at large, Frank DeBrango, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The cleanup seat. Whatever's left over.
Right, cleanup man. I used to bat cleanup when I was a baseball player in the
Right.
baseball team, so I'm used to it, all right. A couple things, the city announced a couple civil service exams coming out, and you can go on the City Utica website, and there's one for police officer, which we'll be looking for, minorities to sign up, as well as females, and let's get hopefully we can get a bunch of good qualified candidates out there. I know we've been trying to get a number of people to sign up, so hopefully we'll have a good number and we'll have some good people to choose from when the openings do exist. There's also a clerk position available and a typist position, so if anybody's out there listening, they're looking for some work, looking for a job, these are all civil service jobs, good paying jobs, good benefits, and I think if you really want to have a career, this may be the way to go. So check out the website, City Utica, and look under civil service, and it'll give you all the information. As far as the codes, great job with the apartment down there. That I know Marcus, Delvin said, led the fight down there, and we've had a lot of people displaced, and I'm hoping that we can bring that back to life. From what I'm hearing, hopefully when the courts are done with all this, hopefully we can maybe sell it, maybe a buyer will come along, reinvest in it, fix the roof, fix whatever issues we have there and bring it back to life, and hopefully we can, as it is a beautiful building, it just needs some TLC, so hopefully that'll come back to fruition here. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to bring out ordinance number 3, sponsored by myself. It's intersections where a stop is required, ordained section 2-16-358, Schedule C, intersections where stop required be amended to include the following: Pleasant Street and Mohawk Street, northeast corner, to control westbound traffic on Upper Pleasant Street. Further be it further ordained that the proper signage be erected where necessary. I'll need a second.
Second from Moody. Your votes.
Eight yeas adopted.
Okay, next up, I have proposed ordinance number 5. I want to bring it out to the floor and then place it in committee.
All right, motion to move and commit. We have a second from Lematico. Any opposed? All right, the residency waiver for electrical inspector is placed in committee. Which committee would you like that in? Committee of the whole or a
That'd be
specific?
fine.
All right, committee of the whole it is.
When-
Would you like the floor?
Something- Yeah, can I speak?
All right.
I would just like to ask Councilman DeBrango, would it be helpful if I brought the potential inspector to the committee meeting, or would that be not helpful?
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
I'd just like to, obviously, we'd like to look at some numbers. Maybe Heather could show us what we're looking at, what we're going to be taking in, how much it's going to cost us to pay this person, things of that nature. We'll look into it a little bit deeper.
Sure, I just wasn't sure because he's not technically our employee, I wasn't sure how that.
Right.
Okay.
That's fine, not necessary. Okay, right now, there's ordinance number 15, ordinance 16, 17, and 18. They're all transfer of funds.
Would you like to make a motion to waive the?
Thursday rule.
Yeah, a few.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a second from Lematico. Any opposed to waiving the rules of order to introduce these pieces of legislation? Okay, you can just introduce them as a block because I have a
Yep.
feeling you might be
Block
putting
of
them in committee.
15, 16,
Okay.
17, 18 ordinance, transfer of funds, UPD cost center reallocations, transfer of funds, street lighting, transfer of funds, UFD cost center reallocations, and UFD retirement. We're all going to place this in the committee of the whole.
All right, is there a second to place in committee? Lematico, any opposed? Would you like them in committee or the budget? I know you had mentioned the budget committee possibly. I know, well, the thing is all 9 people are on all 9 committees, so, all right, committee of the whole. Any opposed? It's in. Anything else this evening, Councilman?
I believe that is it. Am I right in saying that?
I think you are.
I
All
believe
right,
that is it. I believe we covered it all.
You know what,
Thank
I
you,
was gonna
Mr.
say a
President.
couple things, but you know what, we're pushing pretty late tonight. Do we have a motion? We have a
close.
motion to adjourn. All right, second from multiple people. Catch you guys later.
Yeah.